All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to say, Call Allah Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Ba'ashim Rechakodash. Double belongs to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who taught us this truth and rule well. And Shalom to the hopeful elect. Yah, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Barakatam. This is the brother Kazariah from the Men 12 West Coast, coming back at it again with another lesson. All right, and the title of this lesson is going to be, you so-called Latinos and you so-called Native Americans are Hebrew Israelites too. All right, and this lesson is going to be, response to a clip, you know what I'm saying, titled Cool G Rap Knows He's an Israelite and Fat Joe Learns the Truth, uploaded by a fellow laborer, GMS Get This Work. That's the channel. I'm not, I don't know the brother's name, you know what I'm saying, but that's where you could watch this clip. All right, so basically, this clip was Cool G Rap, which he's like an old school rapper, man. Came out, I believe, in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, early 90s. It's the hip hop, DJ Premier. What's the other dude, Gangstar? You know what I'm saying? It was in that scene. You know what I'm saying? He's probably before that, if I'm not mistaken, man. I'm not too, I'm a little rusty when it comes to the hip hop history. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, so you have Cool G rapping and you have Fat Joe. Fat Joe, he's a so-called Latino rapper. Everybody knows about Fat Joe. Everybody who's older, that is. You know what I'm saying? And so anyways, what he's doing is he's telling Fat Joe that the so-called black people, so-called African Americans are the Hebrew Israelites. All right, but he doesn't mention the so-called Latinos and the so-called Native Americans, which are also Hebrew Israelites. They also make up the tribes, man. You know what I'm saying? They make up a good majority of the tribes. And that to me is very vexing, because here it is, you're talking to a Latino and you're only just gonna mention your people, your side, man. You know what I'm saying? With the children of Israel, all right, is the so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. All right, they make up the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, now the reason why so-called black people and so-called Latinos and Native Americans look different now, all right, is because I'm gonna break down the history. I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but basically Israel used to be one kingdom. All right, Israel used to be one kingdom, and then what ended up happening is the kingdom split up into two kingdoms. All right, you had the kingdom of Judah, which is the so-called Negroes, and then you had the kingdom of Ephraim, which is the so-called Latinos and Native Americans. Now they started out, looking like so-called black people. All right, but what happened was you had the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians, all right, took over the kingdom of Ephraim. All right, who are the so-called Latinos and Native Americans, and with the intermingling, you know what I'm saying? The kingdom of Ephraim, so-called Latinos and Native Americans started looking like the other nations. You had Moab in the mix as well. Moab being the so-called Chinese. That's why you have a lot of Hispanics and Native Americans that have those. They got the the similar eye features, man. The slant eyes, basically. You know what I'm saying? They have similar eye features to the so-called Chinese and the Japanese. All right, and this happened because Ephraim mingled himself among the heathen after the split, basically. So they were over there, in the kingdom of Assyria under captivity. Which is basically judgment of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua, because they're going off into idolatry. And until this day, you still see the northern tribes going off in their idolatry, man. So-called Latinos worshiping that Virgin Mary, worshiping that Santeria, the different Catholic idols. Going into all that, man. Worshiping that Caesarea Borgia. Going into all that. So they're lost in the sauce, man. And it's not to mention that the Southern Kingdom isn't lost in the sauce as well. But hey, it's just, just mention this to show that there's nothing new under the sun, man. All right, so let's bring out a quick precept. All right, I don't know why I went on the internet, but hey, it's the spirit, man. I probably won't be able to find it in the blue letter. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to be real precise with the words, man. So just bear with me here. All right. So, all right, there we go. So it's the book of Hosea, chapter 7 and 8. Now we're going to bring out as to why Ephraim Ephraim, so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans have lost their melanin, basically, have lost their original look. All right, so the book of Hosea, chapter 7, verse 8, Ephraim has mixed himself among the people. All right, Ephraim is a cake not turned. Okay, and that's what you'll find among the so-called Latinos and the Native Americans, man. All right, a cake not turned, because if you look at a cake that's cooking and you don't turn it, all right, one side of it is going to be really dark and the other side is going to be really light. And that's what you see among the so-called Latinos and Native Americans, man. You got some Latinos that are they light skin, they brown, very light complexion. All right, and then you got others that are super dark skinned, man. And they got all the Judite, features and all that, man. Verse 9, strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yeah, gray hairs are here, and they're upon him, yet he knoweth not. You know what I'm saying? And that's because the northern tribes, man, that's one of the frustrating things about the northern tribes, is that, they're just like unaware, man. They're spiritually unaware of a lot of things. Talking about the so-called Latinos and Native Americans, and this is why, it's very vexing when dealing with them, because they really have, they're really stiff-necked, man. They're really stubborn, and they're really simple. All right, here it is. Like this one time, this was during the time when it was coming out that, them ICE detention centers were taking so-called Mexican kids, having them in cages, covering them with aluminum foil blankets. I mentioned this to Israelite, and he just didn't give a fuck, man. For lack of a better term, pardon my French, but it's just very, very vexing. But that's neither here nor there. All right, it's just I had to bring out this precept, to prove that, the northern tribes, the northern kingdom, which make up you so-called Latinos and Native Americans, the reason why you don't look like the so-called black people is because your ancestors mixed and mingled with the other nations. And then also too, you have the Spaniards that came over here, all right, and y'all mixed yourselves with them as well, man. There's a lot of rape going on too. You got a lot of tears among the Latinos and Native Americans, same way you got a lot of tears among the so-called black people. All right, so let's get to the next scripture. All right, we're gonna prove how so-called Latinos and Native Americans came here to America. All right, with that, I'm going to close out. All right, so the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 40. All right, now before I go into this into this passage, all right, I'm gonna point out that, let me see if I could look this up, if anything. The 12 tribes chart, just to give a good illustration. All right, but let's go with this one. There we go. All right, so just to give a good illustration of the 12 tribes of Israel, all right, just to have some context and have some foundation when I go into the history of how the tribes got here. So we have the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, you got Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which make up the southern kingdom. So that's the Negroes, West Indians, and the Haitians, so-called Negroes, so-called dark-skinned people. All right, and you had the rest of the tribes. All right, the northern kingdom from Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Naphtali, Asher, Issachar. That's the Dominicans, the Guatemalans to the Panamanians. So that's, Central Americans. The Puerto Ricans is Ephraim. All right. The Cubans, which Puerto Ricans is the head tribe of the northern kingdom. All right. The so-called Puerto Ricans, the Ephraimites. All right. The tribe of Ephraim. Then you have the Cubans, which is Manasseh. The North American Indians is the tribe of Gad. And it makes sense because, yeah, man, them North American Indians, man, is some straight warriors, man. Some straight warriors. And Gad, what is the word, what does the tribe name mean? Troop. All right, so you have the Seminole Indians. That's the tribe of Reuben, the Reubenites. And then you got the Argentinians to the Chileans. All right, that's Naphtali. All right. So the Argentinians to the Chileans, that's like the southern part of South America. All right, the southern half of South America. And then you got the Colombians to the Uruguayans, that's the top half of South America. That's the tribe of Asher. All right. And then you got the so-called Mexicans at the bottom. It's the tribe of Issachar. All right. So these are the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Now you got Levi that dwelt with the rest of the tribes. All right. Levi, the tribe of Levi was the priesthood. Okay, so they didn't have a set land. They dwelt with all the tribes. So they're basically intermingled among all the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, but they're the main place where you're gonna find them in bulk. All right, is Haiti. Okay, so with that, we're gonna go hit the scripture. All right, and tell the history on how they got here. So it reads the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 40, and it reads, "Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land." All right, because you had Haitians that that stayed with the Southern Kingdom. All right, that stayed with the so-called Negroes, and then you had Haitians that left with the Northern Kingdom, with the so-called Latinos and Native Americans. All right, so those are the 10 tribes which were carried away a prisoner out of their own land. All right, out of the kingdom of Ephraim, in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive. All right, so Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away led away the northern kingdom. All right, led away you so-called Latinos and Native Americans. All right, and the reason he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. All right, so he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. Now, this land is talking about the land of Ashur. All right, the kingdom of these Assyrians. All right, and it reads, "But they took this counsel amongst themselves." All right, they took this counsel amongst themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go further into go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. All right, so this further country is talking about the Americas. All right, so they took counsel, meaning they got together and they planned, you know what I'm saying, and they agreed to basically leave and escape the oppression of the Assyrians. All right, and to do that, they were going to escape into this further country where never mankind dwelt. That's talking about the Americas. All right, so verse 42, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. All right, which is the reason why Yahweh Shem Shai brought the Assyrians upon them, is because they were going off. All right, they were going off into all this idolatry, back then. All right, and it's much what you see nowadays, man. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and 9, it's nothing new under the sun. All right, roughly paraphrasing, So verse 43, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. All right, so they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. Now, I'm going to try to pull up the map. All right, I'm going to try to pull up a map. So you got the Euphrates River, and then you got the map. All right, so here we have the Indian Ocean. All right, so here we have Saudi Arabia. Now, I want you to remember this area. All right, because this is where I'm going to tie everything together through the Spirit of Yahweh Bashim Shai. And then what you have right there is the Euphrates. All right, so and then you have right there Syria, the Assyrians. All right, so they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. All right, so they entered into the Euphrates by boats, and then they went down to the Persian Gulf, and from the Persian Gulf they went out into the sea. All right, so let's bring it out. All right, so a reason they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river, for the Most High had showed them signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. So Yahweh Shem Shai was with you, so-called Latinos and Native Americans. All right, he was with you so that you could accomplish your journey. All right, so you could go to the Americas and keep the Lash's commandments over there. All right, so it reads verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, and same region is called Arsarith. All right, so in order to get to the Americas from that region, all right, it took a year and a half. All right, and to substantiate that, there is a passage during the time of King Solomon. There's it's in the scriptures, and I forgot the scripture. You know what I'm saying? And Salaki for this, but it's, you know what I'm saying, just to save time. It talks about how in the reign of King Solomon, they would take ships and bring in goods from America. All right, so let me bring out a world map. All right, so let me see if I could zoom into it. All right, so yeah, I need one with better. I need one with better quality. Hold on, let me see. World map, HD. How about that? We'll give it a second for the image to load up. All right, you know what? Let's just keep on going, man. All right, so King Solomon, this is just terrible. Basically King Solomon, he'd send people out to he would send people out to the Americas to bring back the goods. All right, and it would take them, and it would be a 3-year journey, because it would take them a year and a half to get there and a year and a half to come back. All right, so that's why in 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse 45, it's, I'm gonna read it again. It reads, "For through that country there was a great way to go." All right, and it reads, namely, of a year and a half. Okay, so it took them a year and a half to get to this region. All right, and the same region is called Arsareth. All right, verse 46. Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and when they shall begin to come. All right, now that second part of that verse, dealing with when they shall begin to come, is talking about the children of Judah, or it's like the kingdom of Judah, being the so-called black people coming over here on the slave ships. All right, so like being brought over here on the slave ships. All right, but this is where the so-called Latinos and Native Americans dwelt, for this whole time. This is why you're not over there in Israel. This is why you've been over here, this whole time. All right, but your original land was in the land of Israel. All right, your original nationality are Hebrew Israelites. All right, that's the true and original nationality of you so-called Latinos and you so-called Native Americans. Okay, and that's why it's very vexing. I wouldn't say that vexing, but it's vexing, to see Judah talking to a Hispanic and not include the Hispanics as being part of the tribes, man. It's vexing because Judah think he the only one going through it, man, when you got the Latinos and Native Americans going through it as well, getting oppressed as well, they're under the curses as well, but it's all good, man, because the times that we're in, all right, the tabernacle of David is being rebuilt. All right, so let's bring out this quick little precept. I believe it's in the dang. All right, hold on. Let me just narrow it down a little bit. There we go. So book of Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 33. All right, and it reads, "Thus said the Hashem Yahushua of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together." All right, and that's what you see. All right, children of Israel being oppressed as a whole, man. All right, so-called black people in the ghetto, so-called Latinos in the barrios, so-called Native Americans in the reservations, man. And they call it the res for short, but if you go there to them reservations, man, it's not pretty, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not pretty. All right, it's poverty. It's the curses all over that place, man. Same with the other locations, man. All right, where the tribes dwell in. All right, so it reads, the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast, and they refused to let them go. All right, and they refused to let us go because they don't want us coming back to our real nationality. All right, that's why, which again, you know what I'm saying, is these celebrities, man, you know, they know who they are, man. You know what I'm saying? But it's just have to use this as, you know, use this example, you know, to show that, you know, so-called Latinos are Native Americans too. I mean, it's like that so-called Latinos and Native Americans are Hebrew Israelites too. You know, just to bring out that edification. All right, so that deception could stop, man. You know, because it's gonna be a thing to where, you know, you're gonna have celebrities talking about, you know, they Hebrew Israelites. You know what I'm saying? So-called black celebrities talking about they're Hebrew Israelites, and then they're not going to include the so-called Latinos, you know, and because they got a lot of influence over the tribes, you know, it's going to be a big stumbling block for the children of Israel. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is, man. You know, those that Yahweh Shem Yahushua opened up to this truth are going to receive it, and those that don't those that are not opened up to the 100% truth, they're not going to receive it, man. All right, so at the end of the day, man, it just is what it is, man. But we, you know, on as fellow laborers, man, we got to defend the gospels. We got to, you know, bring out the edification, the full truth, man. All right. So with that, I'm going to say, Call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rechakodash, for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. All right. Adawan Ratazah was edifying. All right. With that, I'm going to say, Shalom.